He's a member of the Third Order, regular of St. Francis, and he has dedicated his career to exploring the intersection of technology and ethical considerations, particularly within the realm of AI and bioethics. And even in our conversations yesterday, what became apparent is the way he's looking at these problems, he has an engineering mindset. And he was an engineering student at Sapienza University in Rome, and through that, he decided, during that course, and he maybe shared that story with us a bit more, he shared it last night, he decided that, the route of becoming part of the Franciscan order, the theology, philosophy, and ethics, but that engineering things permeates in how he looks at the world, how he looks at ethical considerations, how he looks at, yes, these considerations are important, can they fit in the world that we're living? How do you sort of make them work? How do you make systems and technologies respond to it? And he's a professor at the Pontifical Gregorian University and has held positions at the Theological Institute of Assisi and the Pontifical College of Leonardo the Nag. As I said, I need pages on him. And he's been looking at aspects of asking about neuroethics. I learned so much from him last night on neuroethics and AI ethics and algorithms and fairness. And as I said, that he brings a very unique perspective as a Franciscan friar with a background in engineering, and now having a dialogue in AI ethics. He's advised the G7, he's advising multiple corporations globally, and helping us think about what does it mean as we imagine the world of ethics within the AI. So without further ado, Paolo Benanti, please join us. And again, his work truly optimizes the integration of faith, ethics, and technology, aiming to guide humanity towards a future where technological advancement can enhance rather than diminish our shared human power. Please.
Thank you very much. I'm scared that after this introduction, I can just disappoint you. But, this is another perspective. Well, sometimes we use words without thinking so much. What does it mean when we say something? And if we talk about ethics and technology, probably we give for a sure what does it mean, but it's not so clear. If you take a hammer, which kind of ethics could be inside an hammer? It's designed to work with a purpose. It's designed to work in one way. So in which way we can take together ethics and technology? Well, when I make this question to my students, I was used to be really provocative, and I take the liberty to do the same things tonight. And I show this kind of picture. On the left side, you can see Fifth Avenue, New York, on an Easter morning on one of the first year of the last century. Okay, the fact that it was Easter was incidental, yeah? The second one was 13 years later, same place, same picture, but you can see a difference. On the left one, there are no cars. On the right one, there are no horses. Well, I am used to ask to my students, what is better and what is worse? Well, we are too many here to have this kind of game. But let me try to summarize some of the idea that probably you are having here. If you are in a business school, probably you are thinking that if you was in the supply chain of the horses, things are really worse. But if you are in the supply chain of the car, then you find a job. It's not anymore the needing of a stable, but probably selling tires, oil, and things like that. Well, another perspective that you could have could be about the positive innovation that was given by the car, because with car you can proceed fastest than not by horses. Well, actually, I don't want to disappoint you, but an horse is self-driving machine that can get by. Car needs humans, and the average speed in New York dropped down. The second perspective that you could have is that probably after all the environmental issues that we know that probably carbonization of society bring a lot of negative effect. But my job is to teach in university, so I have to be fixated on details. And I found this number of Appleton's magazine, January 1908, that say that the last summer, 20,000 New Yorkers died for the mosquitoes, an infection bringing by mosquito, by the poo or the horses. So in short term, it was a huge improvement to have car instead of horses. Well, and so what we can say? Well, the idea here is not that we cannot say what is better and what is worse. The idea is that when we talk about ethics, this is not the correct question. The question is not what is good and what is bad, what is better and what is worse. Because we have to change the question to understand what does it mean to have an ethical approach to technology. And the idea is questioning innovation to understand the social impact of innovation on different classes of population in a complex social system. Well, and so how we can define ethics of technology? Well, to answer to this question, let me introduce an example from the past. The first example that I would like to introduce to you comes from a paper published in the 1980 from Landon Winner that was called "Those Artifacts Have Politics." Well, Landon Winner, let me say that then there was some criticism on the Winner position and so on, but it's useful to have the right perspective, was used to analyze an improvement that was made in New York, Manhattan. Well, Winner read a huge 1,000-page book written by Robert Caro, that is one of the best 100 non-fictional books in the US market about the life of a really famous politician in New York that was Robert Moses. Well, Robert Moses was the politician that simply shaped Manhattan as we know today. The huge infrastructure was made by Moses. Well, one of the infrastructure that Moses was really proud of was a parkway, a highway that was used to connect Manhattan to Long Island. And especially in Long Island, one of the best natural park, Jones Beach. Well, this is a little bit criticized if this is the real reason or not. But what Landon Winner say, reading this 1,000-page book on the life of Robert Moses, is that Moses has some clear political ideas at that time that today are unacceptable, but at that time was enough to make it active in shaping the city. The idea that Moses has that the best part of population has to be kept for the best part of the city. The best part of the city is for the best part of population. And here come the really unacceptable things. For him, the best part of population was the white middle class. Well, and now the idea was, in which way we can keep Jones Beach just for the white middle class? The first thing was without building any public transportation system. There was no public transportation system. And here comes the second thing that Landon Winner used to describe what is the approach of ethics of technology looking at the innovation. Well, the bridges over the parkway that looks like every other bridges, concrete and asphalt, you can discover reading these 1,000-page books that are built 2 feet lower than the standard. A bus cannot commute on the street. Only the owners of a car can go to Jones Beach. That means, at that time, only white middle class. And here arrived the brilliant conclusion of actually Landon Winner. Every technological artifact is a displacement of power, is a form of order. So when we talk about ethics of technology, we are not talking about something that has to decide what is better and what is worse. But we have to acquire a style in questioning technology, so the different shaping of power that an introduction of technology inside a society produce. And the goal of ethics of technology is to offer to the different stakeholders the element to have an active political decision-making system on innovation. Well, this is something that applies to every single kind of technological layer. Because every time that you use a smartphone, every time that you use a computer, someone wrote something that is really effective, not less than the concrete bridge of Moses, to give you a sense of power. The IT guys that wrote, if this, then that, make some choices that make an ordination, that give an order, that displays the power behind that kind of screen. And so this kind of question is what we have to question in technology to let surface the different force behind technology. But now let me do another example. Because not all the technology are the same. We have some form of technology that we can define as a special purpose technology. The majority of tools that you use in your life is a special purpose technology. You need to not forget something, and you develop a pen. The pen is a special purpose technology. Well, then we can have an evolution. Pen can become a typewriting machine, can become a computer, can become a laptop, can become an iPad, can become, or a tablet, can become a smartphone, can become the next step of evolution. But there are moments in the history of the human beings in which we develop a technology that is not useful to do something, but that has the ability to change the way in which we do everything. This kind of technology are general purpose technology. In the academia, and as an academician, I have to tell you, we are discussing if the wheel was the first general purpose technology. I don't want to enter inside this debate, but try to think about steam power, chemical power, or electricity. Electricity is not used to do something, but today it's really difficult to find tools that do not work without some kind of electricity. Well, AI is the same things. AI is not used to do something, but is a general purpose technology that is doomed to have a place in almost everything that we will use in the future days. The AI is the technology that could be the most general purpose technology. Well, we saw that every time that we develop a technology, this is a form of order and a shaping of power. What happens when we have a general purpose technology? Well, let me see again from an example from the past. The guys that you see on the left of the screen is Samuel Insull, an Irishman, really proud of himself, that came to the United States and was behind the General Electric company. He was the man that simply was behind the fact that we start to use, produce, and consume electrical power. And his philosophy was, let's democratize it. We lower the price, much more people acquire it, and then much more people will use that kind of technology. It's the same philosophy that is behind the gigs of your mobile phone. We lower the price, you will use more gigs, and everything will become connected. But it's not the only model that exists. The right one that you can see, I already tell you that as a professor, I go inside the archive and look for details. It came out from Russia, 1905, and was a little bit later, and it was the first 5-year plan of Lenin. The name was Goel plane. And it represents a Sovietization of the republics through distribution of electrical power. So when we look at general purpose technology, there is another layer that we have to see. That is the horizon in which we produce technology, and that will be effective in applying the technology to the society. It's not without meaning the fact that today we see a huge conflict between what we can call a Western model to democratize AI, and other model that belong to non-democratic country in the planet. So a general purpose technology is not only something that shape the power and give an order to society, but is also something that include a view of the world, of, to use a German philosophic terms, a Weltanschauung, a vision of the world and a vision of relationship. And so Landon Winner give us the perspective that we would like to include in analyzing AI and in producing an ethical reflection on artificial intelligence. Well, I have a difficulties here now because AI is a lot of things. Let us focus on the last frontier of AI, especially what we know with large language model. And we would like to see in which way this kind of technology could impact or are impacting the world to let you see which kind of power could be inserted in society. To do that, we have to understand what is language. What is the use of language inside society? Well, you know, I don't want to disappoint you, but we are not the only species that communicate on the face of the earth. Almost every species are able to have a communication. You know, ethologists told us that there are monkeys that they shout the meaning of lion is coming, simple to steal the banana. This is a really Italian way to say steal. To steal the banana, and sorry, intercultural adaptation, and to steal the banana to the competitor. We are not the only species that lie. That's impressive. But we have another kind of singularity. Noam Chomsky and all the linguistic studies of the last century show us that our language is really unique because we are a syntactical language. You can do what you want, but you have to express yourself with a subject, verb, an object, the famous 4-slot sentence that you learn when you learn English. Well, that ability is just of our species. We are the only species that is able to communicate in a syntactical way. Noam Chomsky make a lot of study on that. We know also the limitation of Noam Chomsky studies, but that perspective tells us a lot of things, but not everything that is needed to understand language as a technology. Because, you know, we handle language in that syntactical way because, like Chomsky said to us, our brain is able to understand in that way. Probably you see some old and dusty documentary in which there are people that is talking with monkeys, and monkeys can express themselves. I would like red candy, things like that. Well, that study don't say all the truth, because for that monkey, object and verb are the same things. The monkey can use in a different way. We can't. There are a lot of studies, really interesting, that show us that we cannot make something of mistake when we speak. You know, when I was here as a PhD student in Georgetown, I'm a young friars, I went to the Italian community. A lot of people love me and I eat so much. But I know that you understand what I mean. But, you know, there was the old Italian migrant that after 40 years in United States still say orango instead of orange. In Italian, it's arancio. So they make that kind of mistake. But not one is changing the subject with the verb. It's hard written in our brain. Well, this is a huge and interesting thing about language. But do not say all the truth on the language. Try to be back to the hammer that I talked about when we was to start. If I approach with this Chomsky style to the hammer, I have to say that the hammer as an handle, this is a really Italian way to explain things with hands, sorry for that, because I can handle the hammer. It's interesting. Language is syntactical because my brain can handle it. But what is a hammer used for? That's not say by the handle. You need something else. And now the question is, what is the language used for? Why we use so much mental energy, cultural stress, and so on to learn a language? Well, the answer is really intriguing. Because, you know, if I say to you, I am sad, my words are allowing you to view something that is invisible, my inner state. So the language is the tool that makes it visible the invisible. Is the ability to instruct the imagination of another member of my species. Something that an orango can't do it. Something that is not possible in other species. We know that orango can teach to other monkey how to do tools, but they can only show it. I'm not telling that when you watch YouTube in a tutorial, you are downgrading yourself to a monkey level. Because this is a useful thing for language, you know? A communication that show you how to do things. And it's a really practical thing. But Bernard Russell, United States philosopher, was used to say that no dogs can tell you that they was son of two poor but good dogs. What does it mean? That if I talk you about my father, about my grandmother, my language is able to show you something that you are not able to see. So I have an history. I have a past, because it is visible now with languages. I can dream a future, because this is visible with the language. So the language is a so powerful tool because we invented with the language the same possibility to have an invention. Okay, I'm also a theologian. It's so impressive that we talk about the gospel, the language that makes visible the invisible God. But I don't want to go in that direction. We go too far. But it's impressive as a human species. Well, with language, we have not only an history, we have also me. We can build the core element of our coexistence. Think about what does it mean, the flag. Think about what does it mean, the identity. Think about what does it mean, your personal family history. It's something that gives to you an identity. With languages, we can express something that is invisible. You know, if you have a cat is wonderful because the cat is able to survive. The cat knows what he can eat and what he cannot eat. You know, if you would like to know what is edible, what is not poisoning you, you need someone else that tells to you. A cat has an instinct. To know if something is possible to do or is not possible to do, you need language. All the law students that are here know that it's thanks to language that the law exists. All the journalist students here know that it's thanks to language that the stories are visible, also to people that are not present at that moment. With language, we can express ethics, we can express law, we can have an ordained society. Well, let me say that language is not a general purpose technology. There are no such thing as that. Otherwise, you never use the fax. Probably, let me see your face. You never see a fax, but you never use an email, a WhatsApp, a messages, because there are no such thing as a general purpose technology for languages. That means that evolution in language produce an evolution on the human condition. And we know at least one big evolution that changed forever what we are during the history. And here comes the question, are we weird? Well, the answer is yes, in the sense of Western, educated, rich, industrial, and democratic. Welcome to what we are. This huge book, sorry, I found only the Italian front space, but it is an English book, show with a huge amount of data that when we start to print the language, we change it forever our mentality. We are Western in the sense that we are, as a unity that believe in an instruction, we are educated, and you know we are in a university, we are in a rich country that has an industrial entity and democracy, and all these elements arise from the story that we have with language once it was printed. The book is marvelous. You can see the place in German where with the Lutheran Reformation, they start to change the attitude with the reading of the book. And they change totally the behavior and the mentality. Just to give you an example, as weird people, as a Western people, we are used to have one sense that is the sense of guilty. You feel guilty. This is not something for the Lent. It's a standard category. So what does it mean to feel guilt? I say to myself, you have to go 3 times a week to the gym. You don't go to the gym, and you can see, and you feel guilty. You feel guilty. You miss your standard in doing something. Welcome to weird people. Non-weird people, they don't have guilty sense. They feel ashamed. If someone of you, like you, or someone of your family, do something that is not appropriate, all the family feel ashamed. The difference between these two radical attitudes come from the relationship that we had with languages, and especially by the printing press. Well, at that point, it's important for me to highlight what the changing on that technology produced in the past. Look, I'm preparing you to arrive to the moment in which, like now, we have a computed language. And I will ask to ourselves what will change in our identity and understanding. But before that, let me show you what happened when we start to print languages. Well, the first things that happen is that we start to try to analyze reality in a really different way. There are wonderful books. Eisenstein, she's an anthropologist. She teaches in the United States. Ong, he is a Jesuit. Well, both analyze what happened with the invention of the press system. If you look at a really old book before the pressing, there is no space, there is not front page. Everything was mixed. At one point, when we start to print things, we start to give an order, geometrical order, to the reality. And we start to understand space in a really different way. Before the invention of the press, left side, you can see the map. The map has not an understanding of reality or space as a quantity, but as a quality. In the center, there is Jerusalem, the core point for the faith, and then there is a lot of place put here and there without any real distribution according to the surface. The right one is a Mercator projection, one of the first map, and you can see that we start to define the space as a neutral place in which there are water, in which there are land, and things like that. If you go to the ancient philosophy, reality was made by different quality, land, air, fire, and things like that. Well, this kind of changing gives us a new approach to the space. But printing and other understanding of reality change also the perception of time. On the left side, you can see how was the time before the invention of mechanical clock. That simple is same times of the printing press. The time was given by the prayer during the day. And you have to pray 12 hours during the day. But we live in a northern hemisphere. That means that the number of hours of light in the winter is shorter than the number of hours of light in the summer. So the 12 hours of prayer was really flexible. And you know, in the Catholic monastic tradition, the same effect remains in Rome. There is no delay in Rome. The time is really flexible. But, you know, the number of time was different. And in the Catholic tradition, you have to simple fast until the 9th hour of the day. In Latin, it was none. Well, none, probably in your prayer book, it's equal to 3 p.m. But none, if you go northern, if you go to London, None, Latin, became noon, midday. Time was a quality, before and after Christ, not a quantity. Then we developed that kind of tools that the name was kappa band, and is a way to use the micro oscillation of a pendule to give to a time something that make it visible. The visibility of the invisible allow us to count the time. And we have another transformation, and the other transformation was the moving from the Roman number to the Indo-Arabic number. That give us the ability to view what we was measuring of reality. Well, the last thing is this. I found it in an England library, this competition between two ways to calculate the reality. On the right side, you can see the old way, abacus, abacisti. In the right side, number, the algorithmists. So the algorithms start to become the quantity that allow us to measure the reality. When we change the language, when we change this radical technology, we can imagine in a different way reality. We can change deeply our culture. So with the invention of that, with the using of that number, with the changing of understanding of time and space, we changed forever what we saw about and what we understand about reality. Well, at this point, we have to face the last innovation that comes from artificial intelligence. Because probably the most interesting things that arise from the last frontier of artificial intelligence is the ability of artificial intelligence to handle language in a way that is the same way that we do. We have a not only printed language, now we have computed language. GPT models are machines that can handle language in a way that we was not prepared to do. And this kind of new way to handle as a general purpose technology the language happen in a tension between two different models to distribute the system inside the world. Well, but so at this point, I have to ask you, which kind of disposition of power is this? So what is the effect in society of this kind of innovation? Well, to answer to this question, I have to follow up a little evolution, of what happened inside the introduction of this new way to understand language. Everything arises when we invented a concept that is the concept of information. Information was developed during the World War II by a man that the name was Claude Shannon. And it's interesting, and probably you studied that information was a brilliant concept that allowed Shannon to make possible to transmit messages from Washington to London. It is the opposite of the work that was made by Turing when he would like to decipher a message that from Berlin go to the different military bases. Well, but the most important thing is the application of information. Well, the first application of information made after the war by Shannon was with a little mechanical mouse. You can see this is a keyframe from a dusty and grainy documentary that you can find on internet from Bell Labs. Claude Shannon make this mechanical mouse and make a wired labyrinth. Well, he leave the mechanical mouse in the labyrinth. Every time that the mechanical mouse hit a wall, there is a click inside the relay, and the mouse make a rotation of 90 degrees. So hitting the wall after hitting the wall, the machine was able to find the exit from the labyrinth. Well, information, and this is the core element of languages, because it's a language without any other meaning than the meaning inside it, 0 or 1, produce a wonderful tool. There is a tool that changed forever the machine that we developed with the first industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution allowed us to have a machine that was able to surrogate the muscular power of people. Now this machine can acquire by us an end, find the exit from the labyrinth, and find the means to produce that kind of ends. That kind of machine show a kind of intelligence. So information used to control the machine produce a new kind of machine that is an intelligent machine. Claude Shannon made this little invention, 1950 almost. Well, it's interesting that that kind of invention hit the market in the early 2000 with the name iRoomba, when we was able to put everything inside the machine and you have not to wire all the houses. Well, this is to say that we have an intuition on things, then they hit the market later. But the man that gave a scheme to what Shannon was used to do was the second man here, Norbert Wiener. And Norbert Wiener simply defined the way in which we can use information, this new kind of language, 0 and 1, to control things. The idea was the cybernetic loop. We put a sensor in the front of machine. The sensor gives a signal from the reality. That signal is an information that with a cybernetic loop change the behavior of the machine. We are so used to that kind of using information that we didn't notice anymore. Last time that you crossed the door of an elevator and the door didn't kill you, it's because you interrupt a light beam, that was the sensor, and the door came back open without killing you. It's interesting. And you have to know that Norbert Wiener was touched by the first use that that kind of system produced in society. We was during the Cold War, and the Russia treaty to the United States need a military jump up in the system. So if you see an old documentary or an old movie on World War II on anti-air artillery, you can see 3 men to every pieces. One is looking where the airplane came, one is regulating the direction, and another one is regulating the height of the pieces. But if you use a human being like a sensor, you can use 2 kleb and 1 man on the piece, it's enough. Norbert Wiener has a crisis, and he wrote a book, The Human Use of Human Beings in a Cybernetic Society. Ethics is coming, with these new kind of languages. What is the use of human beings in relationship with the machine? But the most important things that arise from this new step of languages made by 0 and 1 come from a woman. Like always in the history of the human beings, women are the ones that change the game. The name was Margaret Mead, and Margaret Mead, that was an anthropologist, a brilliant anthropologist, that really had the courage to do things that no other people was able to do, start to think to this concept of information in social spaces. And she started to say, well, I can use the concept of information also for describing things that are not in other way explainable. So I can imagine that every time that something happens in your body, there is an information system that produces a changing with a feedback, with a loop of what is happening in your body. Welcome to the theory of systems. And I can use the same thing to explain what's happening inside society. If we are an herd, if we are a group, signal among us can produce changing in our behavior. And so at that point, Margaret Mead used this idea of information to produce a changing in what we understand on human being condition and in what we understand in social relationship. Because, you know, before, to explain why you was here, we have to use some strange things, philosophically speaking, that was the final causes. You come here because you would like to come here freely. Well, with Margaret Mead application of cybernetic to social process, we can cancel these strange and difficult things that are final causes like freedom. And we can rewrite everything with a circular causation. A is causing B, that is causing C, that is causing A. We can avoid to talk about freedom, and we can have a cybernetic approach to society. We can control society. So the using of this new kind of language, digital language, in society produce the idea that you can simply skip what we call as freedom. Cybernetic loop on the left, the idea of using a sensor between the machines and reality that change the behavior of machine thanks to the language of information. The crisis of Norbert Wiener, the human use of human beings, cybernetic and society, the brilliant intuition of Margaret Mead that simple extend this idea from engineered system to every kind of human system and human relationship. Well, it's at this point that this kind of idea come to Europe. And we have two different kinds of reaction. One line of reaction happened in French. I cannot go deeper inside that kind of reaction, but the French people start to think that cybernetic was the perfect machine to run a state. With information, we can run a state without needing of election and other things. French mentality, you know, I'm Italian, I don't love it. Well, thank you. I'm used to be a professor. If you still laugh when I say stupid things, I didn't lose you. You have to know how to get by. But the most interesting things happen when a German philosopher, Martin Heidegger, read the book from Norbert Wiener. You know, Martin Heidegger is a German, another category that is really well loved by Italian. And so, like every German and like a huge philosopher, he was used to say that you can think just in two languages, Greek, like the first philosopher, and German, no other language. So when he read cybernetic loop, well, loop, what is loop? English, bad. Cybernetic, that has a root from Greek, kuber, that means control, he loved a lot. And in this little conference, with a really apocalyptic title, like the one that Heidegger loved, Das Ende des Denken, in der Gestart der Philosophie, the end of thinking in the age of philosophy, he was analyzing what does it mean to use information in society. Well, the idea of Heidegger was really brilliant if you remove this typical German attitude. If I put human beings and machine on the same level through the information, I produce adapt. Is it the man that works as a sensor for the machine and control the machine? Or is the machine that works as a sensor and control the man? So last time that you see a young boy or a young girl on the street, you know, this is a cybernetic element. My finger is the sensor on the screen. Is it my finger? Is it the finger of the young, of the kid that is controlling the display? Or are the notification of these things that are controlling the kids? Welcome to the impact of societal information as a language. The impact of information as a language in society has to be understood as a problem of control. And this is not different from the problem of the bridge on the parkway of Moses. It's a matter of control in society. This is the space of ethics. Well, and the most important things arise from the last knowledge that we had about the human beings. Let me focus on Thinking Fast and Slow of the Nobel Prize recipient, Daniel Kahneman. Well, Daniel Kahneman showed that our rationality is not one system. We would like to be rational, but we work actually with two systems. The first one is called System 1, and is an intuition and instinct system that, I'm sorry, work 95% of time in which we are awake. Is unconscious, fast, associative, is like an automatic pilot. Last time that you drive your car and you was talking with someone on your right, you was using System 1. For all the ladies in the room, last time that your husband start to tell you, yes, honey, yes, my dear, yes, I love you, was System 1. Well, 5% of time, we are used to use another system that is System 2. That is the most rational system and thinking that take effort, is low, is logically, lazy, and indecisiveness. So let me do with a metaphorical example. Let's move to sport. You know, we have this young champion in Italy of tennis, Sinner. He just won the International Australian Slam. And when you have a service in tennis at 100 kilometers per hour, and Sinner, with a brilliant movement, put the ball in that angle and it make a return ace, is System 1. He didn't think a lot. He did it, and he won. Well, when we have Garry Kasparov that's playing chess, well, when you play chess, you have to think a lot. You make a movement after a lot of time. That's System 2. I don't know if you never go to walk with a friend of you. You go, for example, to make some trekking, no? And you walk and talk, walk and talk, walk and talk. If you are Italian, you walk and talk with the hands. Walk and talk, walk and talk. At one point, you stop and you have to explain things. Welcome to the shifting from System 1 to System 2. You are not anymore able to do two things. You have to be concentrated. Well, why is so important how we work? Because Kahneman told us that repeated experience, clear display, primed idea, and I'm sorry, good mood, give us a sense of easiness that feel us familiar, feel true, feel good, feel effortless. So allow us to use System 1. About the good mood, he make an experiment and he discovered that the judge after a coffee have 75% more possibility to give freedom on parole. So just in case you was in trouble, bring with you a cup of coffee. It works also with professor, just in case. Well, and what does it mean? That the speaking machine, that AI could be a System 0 that ignite only System 1. Because the clear display and the easiness of data that are given to us from that kind of machine could allow us to live like with an automatic pilot without thinking too much to our choices. And I'm sure that all the people here that are used to work with user experience know what is called choice architecture. So using this idea of priming System 1 to drive the choosing of the people. And why this is ethically important? Because, you know, we know a crisis that simply shake our Western society during the last century. Is the crisis of normativity. We come out from modernity with Immanuel Kant. Probably you can recall from philosophy classes that Immanuel Kant was used to say, the sky with star over me, the moral law inside me. We finished the modernity with this idea of moral law as the best thing that as human beings we can do. Then strange things happen. We have the World War II. We had the Nazi suppression of Jewish people. At a Nuremberg process, we discover the horrible things that this moral duty can do. Hannah Arendt, when Eichmann was captured, go to the process in Jerusalem. And Eichmann, the head of Nazi that signed out the law to kill 6 million people, defend himself telling, I have to kill them because it's the law. Wow. Is it the law still positive? Is it the law still good, like when Kant gave us this idea? More than that, 1976, Paris, Collège de France. Roland Barthes started his lecture telling to everyone, look, the language is fascist. Not because not allow you to say, but because force you to say. After the subject, you need the verb. After the verb, you need the object. So the same nature of our language, the same normativity in our language is too strong to be accepted. Would you like to see what happened on the street? We move from traffic light, a Kantian normative direction, to round circle. Serve yourself. And so in that way, we start to say that the normative action are not anymore acceptable in society. Well, but we know very well that a society without some kind of normativity is not a workable society. And at that point, help us another Nobel Prize winner that discovered a really interesting effect the information can have on human beings, giving a lot of reason to Norbert Wiener when he said the human use of the human being in society. Well, the effect was nudging, and nudge theory. Well, I don't know if you know what is the nudge theory. I tell you the way in which they discovered the nudge theory. It's not really a polite argument, but it's the history. You have to put yourself in one of the biggest European airports, Schiphol Airport. Well, Schiphol in Amsterdam is a huge European airport with a lot of passengers every year. And they have a problem. Cleaning the main toilet cost, I give you a number just to give you a sense, 2 million every year. Cleaning the woman toilet costs 1 million. The man can understand why, urine and things like that. Well, you can have a normative approach. Keep clean. More normative approach, you write bigger. Keep clean. You can have a huge normative approach. Keep clean. Nothing happened. Well, they paint a little mosquito on the toilet. And the price of cleaning man toilet dropped to 1 million. Our Lady, this is a huge insight on main brain. But, well, we was able to fix something that, normatively speaking, we was not able to fix. We can change the behavior of people using some kind of information. Probably the best use of that kind of system comes from a little county in Arizona. They was on the street in which people was used to run. And they have a lot of traffic trap, but they don't work. People start to continue to run. At that point, they make a huge panel. All the ticket of today will be given to one of the drivers that drive under the limit. The number of infraction drop of 98%. Well, so information given to a human system is able to change the behavior of human system. AI is the perfect system to change and control our behavior. The speaking AI, this is the huge ethical problem behind the deploying of AI inside society. This is what Margaret Mead wrote in an interview in 1976. The title of the interview was "For God's Sake, Margaret," because it was too strong. The using of information, it was a solution to the problem of purpose. From Aristotle on, the final causes has always been the mystery. The wall of logic will have to be reconstructed for recursiveness, A cos B that cos C that cos A. When you see some kind of control of population with AI, like in some totalitarianistic state, welcome to the problem of using information as a tool of control inside the social system. And so here we are at the end of my presentation and also at the end of the point. We cannot remove the machine from our society. We don't want to remove the machine from our society. It's a too huge economical and helping factor for every one of us. But we have to consider the fragile part in relationship with the machine, that is the human beings. And to tell us that human has to keep in the loop, that human has to be in the center of designing this kind of relationship between human and machine, I propose this new word that is algorethics. So now it's time to write a new chapter of this book of ethics, a book in which we discuss all the situation in which our freedom has to challenge with reality. Well, this new chapter is not a new ethics, it's a new chapter, has to be written by us. We have to write that, but has to be executed by the machine, algorithms. So it's now time to have this kind of guardrail, ethical guardrail, that can protect the human being, that can allow the human being to flourishing in this new age of language, in which we are moving to a computed language that will transform some of the core elements of our self-understanding. What we are, what we like, what we would like to do will be something that we can achieve in our relationship with the machine. So this is the challenge. This is the human condition. This is the new stage of human language. The way in which we will become women and men tomorrow, it depends on the choice that we make today. Welcome to Algorethics. Thank you.